Everybody, throw me some emojis, some claps, something in the chat just to let us know that you're here, that you can hear us, that you can see us. Yeah, give me some hearts, give me some love because it's Pride. Yeah, let me see those claps. Come on now. All right. So, welcome to our town hall today. My name is Kyron, and I am a volunteer for Basic Rights Oregon, and I am so honored and so happy to be here to host you today and to host this event with everybody. So I hope you are tuning in. You are feeling all of that pride love this year because we had a hell of a year. So you know, please type in the chat like what ways you are celebrating Pride with your friends and family, and let us know how you're doing today. So to give a little background about myself, like I said, I'm a volunteer for Basic Rights Oregon. And I love the organization. It has really helped a lot of people that look like me as far as being a Black trans man. I go by he, him, and his pronouns, just in case you're wondering. And and let's see, I moved here from Pittsburgh about 5, 6 years ago. And my move to Portland has really opened up my ability to be myself and who I am as the Black trans and gifted person that I am. So, after a little background about myself, I want to segue this into the lovely people that you will see on your screen real soon. So, everybody who is on this call, please let me know your names, your pronouns, and what area you're representing in this lovely state of Oregon. Who would like to start?
Hey everybody, I'm Robin from Prineville, Oregon, she, her, hers.
Awesome. Hey, Robin.
Hey there, this is Nick Portella out here in the Columbia River Gorge, the Dalles and Hood River, and I use he, him, and el pronouns.
Hey, Nick. Shout out, bro. That's my bro right there, just so y'all know. Go ahead.
I'm Elliot. I live down in Tequilma, outside of Cave Junction on Tequilma land. I also grew up in Pittsburgh.
No way! Shout out to the 412 in the building.
I still have a 412 area code, although I haven't lived in Pittsburgh since 2006. Yeah, and I use he or they pronouns.
Awesome. Hey, Elliot.
Hey, this is Beck. I am in Lincoln County on the Central Coast, and I use they, them pronouns.
Hey, Beck. Welcome. And we have the best for last, Deborah here.
Hi, my name is Deborah Fordown with Pride Northwest. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, and have been in Oregon since '97.
Awesome. Welcome, Deborah, and shout out to Dallas. Woo! All right. So let's get started. My first question to all of you, and whoever would like to go first, what does Pride mean to you in 2021?
Oh, Pride.
Nick, would you like to take that one?
I guess I wasn't sure if Deborah was going to go there, okay. But I'd have to say for me and personally, Pride in 2021 is really just an opportunity for all of us to reflect on how this last year has affected us and how what are the creative ways that we've managed to like keep our community strong and celebrate those things, because even something like a pandemic has not kept us quiet, has not kept us down. We are still strong and here and excited to celebrate every single day who we are. And so I'm really quite excited to celebrate Pride this year and to see how people across the state are doing it too, because we can't stop, won't stop.
I love it.
I also feel like, tagging on to what you said, Nick, like in Southern Oregon, so there's some firsts happening. Cave Junction is having its first bigger public pride. There was a small gathering last year, but some local teenagers are organizing a pride celebration in public. There's a thing happening in Grants Pass. And so I feel like there's a thing about, like, after a year and a half that's involved quarantine, a lot of isolation, and a lot of, like, I mean, isolation is a pretty familiar thing for, I think, a lot of rural queer folks prior to COVID. But then in the past year and a half, there's been more public conversation around isolation and the need for connection. And so there's this, it feels to me like there's this kind of like exploding out of the house, like asserting our existence, taking up public space, like recognizing that getting together and like community care and insistent queer joy is like part of the antidote and like coping for dealing with ongoing discrimination and harassment. Yeah, and like pushing against that erasure and like, yeah, we're here. We've been talking on the internet for the past while, you know, or meeting up in person or whatever. And so it feels like there's like a busting out for queer joy.
I know for us out here in Prineville, it's been important to make this Pride more intersectional, recognizing our BIPOC community, our Latinx community, lifting them up, raising them up. Last summer was pretty intense with the BLM protests that were happening right along our kind of main drag here in Prineville. And that brought a lot of conversation to town that hadn't happened before. And it felt like, okay, the work is just getting started there in some ways when it comes to our smaller town. Let's keep it going this year and push it, promote it with our Pride celebrations.
Awesome. Beck, would you like to go?
Yeah, sure. So here on the coast, it feels like the community is still pretty COVID cautious. Things are really quite quiet around here. And I can kind of echo those feelings of like thoughtfulness and reflection and what has this past year meant. We've all had a lot of time to think. And I think we are thinking about the what community means to all of us and the different ways that takes shape within each unique individual, because everybody's so different. Everyone feels community differently. Everyone has different needs. Everyone expresses that very differently. Just like pride means different things and people express that in different ways. And so I think that a lot of us are considering the different ways that we can come together. And for those that aren't familiar with Lincoln County, it's very, very long and skinny along the coast. And so even though it's not like super big technically, it's very geographically divided, and North County and South County are really separated, and there might as well be like a Grand Canyon in between them. So there's a lot of us strategizing around how we can bridge that in really creative ways and bring people together that haven't been together before and start doing some really innovative, meaningful work that has never been done, and doing things in ways that have never been done before. So I think that the past year, as horrific as it has been, has given us that reflection time and sort of to like recenter on what community means to us and how we're going to carry that forward into the next year.
Awesome. Thank you, Beck. And Deborah.
Hi, I was having a couple of technical difficulties early on. Pride is what I do. Even before it was a paid position, I've been doing this since 2006. So, Pride in 2021 is, I'll echo what I've heard a little bit of, and that, COVID hit our community really hard, and it was incredibly gratifying to see how quickly the community jumped into action for mutual support, for uplifting, for addressing, isolation in our community happens everywhere. Large city, small town, doesn't matter. And so that's what we've been doing a lot of. As well as, COVID has given us the opportunity to not do necessarily a pride reset, but a chance to think about and really have actual time to think about, what do we want pride to look like? What do we want pride to do? And being able to, when you get to a point where you're doing something really large, it can be really difficult to change it. And this has given us the opportunity to, what's our actual vision for Pride? And so we're excited about the opportunities that we have moving forward.
Awesome. Such lovely answers from everybody. Y'all are such cool people. Give yourself claps, because that was some great answers. So to follow up with that, because there was a lot of, I would say, different answers that, really touched me. And I specifically want to ask this next question to start off with Robin. Specifically, we know that Pride has started out as a riot. And Robin, you specifically brought up a local issue that is very dear to me as far as the inclusion of Pride. Because I will say there are some Pride celebrations where I haven't felt included due to the color of my skin. And, that part really bothered me, because it's like, we all share this wonderful thing together, but you decide to point me out because of the color of my skin. Why is that? Why is that? So with that being said, are there other local issues that you want the rest of us to know about that is happening in your community? And how can we stand beside you to fight those? And this goes out to everybody, but I wanted to start with Robin.
Yeah, great question. So my thought on that is that, intersectional to me also speaks of the interconnectedness of our community. If a piece or a person in our community is hurting, our whole community is going to hurt and suffer. And COVID has shown that, highlighted that very much so in my experience as a mental health counselor here in Prineville. And, part of what's important and what I'd like people to know about our community and what we hope to do with this Pride is that there's this kind of talk mythos here in Prineville that diversity doesn't exist. Why do we need to show representation for a group or a demographic that only represents 0.08 of our overall population? And first of all, that makes me mad, sad. And second of all, diversity does exist. Like Beck was saying, we have this large swath of land, and just for me to go visit with some of my chosen family members, I have to drive 30 minutes from one side of the canyon to the other side of farmlands to spend time with them. Diversity is here. It's just kind of hard to find when we're all so spread out, dispersed, working our tails off to pay rent, pay mortgages, keep food on the table. And so wanting to kind of unpack that a little bit, pull it apart, and show that diversity is here, very much here, very proud, colorful, vibrant, and picking a nice centralized place in our town to hold our celebration, but also our events throughout the week, as well as lifting them up and showing that Pride isn't just about one specific race, ethnicity, gender, creed, et cetera, et cetera. We all fail together, we all succeed together is kind of the thought this year.
I can speak a little bit to some of the issues going on here in the Columbia River Gorge. So much like Robin was saying, it's a trope really at this point in rural communities where people just love to say there's no diversity at all. And why don't you have people of color on your board? There's just none here. And that's just crazy talk. Like, I'm here. I know I ain't the only one. So it's been really incredible to be able. This past year was actually the Columbia Gorge Pride Alliance received their very first grant ever. Everything that the Pride Alliance has done up until this point had been purely based on donations, and they were very minimal. And so at this, we were actually able to get a grant and get a youth council started in the area, and they are going to be having their voices included in this Pride's planning. And it allowed for us to become partners with a local community-based organization called the Next Door. And the primary function of the Next Door is to promote health equity and support our Latinx and Native American communities along the river. And so a big thing that we've been seeing this past year is just the disproportionate ways that the Latine and Latinx and Native American populations are being affected by not only the pandemic, but the lack of work, all the things piling on top of each other. They're really, it's really highlighting all of the disproportionate ways that our communities are affected, especially when you think of the intersectional ways that queer people show up in our communities as well. And so we've really taken this last year as an opportunity to reach out to those communities, build stronger alliances, and really supporting, especially the natives along the Big River, making sure that they're able to survive the winter, and making sure that our migrant seasonal farm workers have the protective personal equipment that they need in order to continue to be able to spend time with their families. And so these overlapping issues are only going to help make Pride and all of these other types of celebrations that much stronger, because people are going to be well enough to actually participate and feel safe enough to engage with their community members and the people that they have close relationships with. So yeah, that's some of what's been going on here.
Thank you for that, Nick. Man, that was lovely. Thank you for sharing all of that. Beck, I have to call on you because I've seen a cat pop up on that screen, and I love me some cats now.
Oh my goodness.
First of all, before you get there, tell me about that kitty.
Okay, I have actually 4 of them in here with me, and they're kittens, and so they're all over the place. But I have one on my lap. This is Pigeon. So she's pretty cute.
Hey, Pigeon.
So yeah, this is a question that's been on my mind a lot lately. Lincoln County is a tricky place to live. I'm from Spokane originally, which is not like a really blue place, but it's definitely very, very urban compared to where I'm living now. And it was a pretty big culture shock to live here. And like, I've been with my partner for almost 17 years, and we had to actively decide to stop holding hands in public spaces. And like, we felt completely unsafe in the community. And so it's just a very different place. And I've been hearing numerous stories from queer people here during Pride of having their flags torn down from in front of their house and destroyed, and displays that they're putting up vandalized, and people don't feel safe or confident going to law enforcement to report hate crimes or to ask for assistance because of lack of response or not being perhaps treated very well. Even though, with the supposed increased protections with the hate crime laws that have been passed and everything, people just feel like it's not safe or worth the deep emotional energy to reach out. And, many of them don't feel safe interacting with law enforcement at all anyways. And so that's been incredibly disheartening to see. We've also had, in recent years, some really pretty nasty instances of violence towards trans people in our community. Back in 2019, a trans woman was brutally attacked near Newport, and I've experienced some really scary things, and some of our people in local politics that are queer have faced death threats and just rampant, just awful stuff. And that seems to have been amplified during the stress of the past year. The pandemic is not an excuse to treat people like crap, but it certainly seems to have really brought that out in some people, especially when people are in positions of having to respond to a crisis and they're queer and their identity gets used, and it's gotten ugly. So that's some of the stuff of where we're at and the difficulties that we are having. And I think in terms of how people can support our community here, I think forums like this where rural voices have a chance to come and speak and share those stories that often go unheard is really, really important, and helps us listen to one another and connect to one another and get that out there and find support this way. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, Beck. It really sounds like we need to be rallying out in Lincoln City and Lincoln County, because I'll start. If you want to start with me, I got it. Call me Call Uncle Kai. I got my number out there. I'm here for you. But I want to move on to another person because I want to give everybody a chance to answer. Deborah, what is your answer to that question?
Well, this is a really good question. Portland is an interesting place, and has experienced lots of stuff over the last couple of years. And our community here is significant. It's large, comparatively speaking. And it's not nearly as comfortable as parts of our community would like to think we are. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways for people to know about the Portland community is that, our identities and our connection to being part of the queer community is the thing that ties us together, when everything else around our identities isn't necessarily also aligned in those ways. And it can make it really difficult for the community here, given our size, to really, really impact certain change, because we're not all on the same page. And that makes for some really interesting, sometimes scary conversations. And there are large parts of our community here who are still completely left out of the conversation, of the visibility, of the resources. COVID, as someone mentioned a moment ago, COVID really showed out the disparities in our community. And I think that is the overarching message for the Portland community, is to recognize that we cannot just simply, as we open back up, and I can see this happening around town, all of a sudden there's all these pride celebrations being planned and all that, that we're not really going to be able to just say, okay, we're back and we're good, because we weren't good before to begin with. And I think we really kind of need to internalize that and recognize that we have a lot of work to do here in this community in Portland. The larger sort of social structure in Portland needs to recognize, and our own people need to recognize that we have not arrived. We haven't finished. We haven't gotten there. And we have a lot of work still to do.
I'll jump in here too. Yeah. So I want to start with, in thinking about things going on locally, something folks might have heard about. There's been this movement in Grants Pass of two educators who, as part of this kind of coordinated national effort to push back on trans rights and target transgender kids, tried to create a movement to label the bathrooms like anatomically male and anatomically female, and make it optional for teachers to use preferred pronouns or use pronouns, and restrict the names that people can use and require parent permission, and did it in this really, they called it the I Resolve, and they did it in this really nice white lady way. And I think that is a pretty common, when I think about the kinds of things that perpetuate making the myth about who lives in rural Oregon and making it less safe for brown folks and queer folks and brown queer folks, that kind of staying away from what's political. We're just being nice and trying to clarify policies, and using that as a mask for things that are really harmful. That's what's showing up here. And I think it's not just here. And on the flip side of that, last weekend, some of the students from North Middle School and Grants Pass High School organized a rally, got together in Grants Pass with other mostly students, and got up with a megaphone and told each other stories about what they were experiencing in school. And, as they were telling those stories, they were also encouraging each other and, coming out of it saying hey, this is not okay. And there was just a seeing each other. I mean, it was amazing to be in that space and hear them saying wow, I've never, some of those kids saying oh, I've never had a feeling of this kind of acceptance in community. And that was coming from us making that for each other and supportive grownups showing up around the outside. We've got a coalition, an I Affirm coalition. You know, you're welcome to like reach out to the Rogue Action Center, or if you've done something similar in other places. We're just figuring out like, how do we center student leadership, center like queer students of color in leading this movement. And it's all unfolding really fast, you know, and the teachers are suing, and so that's kind of one kind of thing that's happening. And we've got, and like involving Basic Rights Oregon and ROP organizers have showed up like in our local meetings, which has really felt like support. I guess I also want to name, there's some bigger, like not specifically queer things, but just things moving. Like in our region, we're in, you know, long-term recovery from wildfires. We're in a housing crisis. There's a war on the poor happening, especially in Medford. There's a cannabis rush happening, which is a huge like land grab. People, you know, moving out from other parts of the country and world to like buy up clear-cut land, suck up wetlands, sell the water. And mostly that money from cannabis, which is like disproportionately impacted, you know, people of color in urban areas, is now, you know, moving into the hands of like the white men who are, you know, buying that land and have the resources to set up these big operations. And I guess I just want to name that context because that kind of like colonial, recolonial like legacy and racism and how those economic things are moving are disproportionately impacting queer people, trans people, people of color. Yeah, so I think that kind of like intersectional, like what is pride? It's like I want to organize with people around those things, and I see that happening in our community and that coordinated pushback. And I think also the like racial justice uprisings, the push for reckoning that's happened since George Floyd's. Oh, I hope I'm just going to keep talking. It's a little frozen, but that happened last summer. I think there's like an increased level of dialogue around like erasure and how our systems have failed certain kinds of people, and a push for acknowledgement. And so I want to name, like, I feel like our like intersectional LGBTQIA Two-Spirit organizing is like being pulled along by like Black organizing to say like, hey, a lot of our institutions have been failing our people and our communities. And so there's some awesome organizing happening in Southern Oregon around like the legacies of racial exclusion, the Southern Oregon Coalition for Racial Equity, So Black, BASE, the Oregon Remembrance Project, like looking at like how our history has shaped the present and how that's like falling out on certain kinds of bodies. You know, and that we got to be dancing through it, you know. There's got to be like pauses of celebration, of like building relationships, of getting to know each other and hear each other's stories, you know, that sustains that like work, which honestly, like some of it has been feeling really heavy and bleak also, like personally speaking. So, and I think in terms of some of the ways that urban folks or whatever, you know, that people can like stand by, I would say, just speaking about like Josephine County, like taking the time to learn about some of the incredible like organizing and radical lesbian, gay, queer history that exists here, like not erasing us is a huge one. And then also, you know, it's a lot of work we did this survey of queer people, and one of the things that people said was we want, you know, events and things that get people together, and our communities are often like under-resourced. And so if you're doing something and you want to like come through on your tour and like stop here or come do your workshop or your lecture, like things that get queer people in our community together are a real benefit for folks here. You know, it's just like we're all wearing like 15 hats. And so, yeah, that's a little bit.
Y'all just dropping gems. Give yourself some snaps here. Y'all dropping some good gems. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for, you know, blessing us with those answers right there. So to segue into that, since we've all talked about, I guess, the issues that are impacting your respective communities, I also want to ask you, through the organizations that you represent, what do you have planned for Pride to help them keep dancing, keep that bright energy going, because like I said before, Pride started as a riot, okay? A lot of things started as a riot, and also want to take a moment to shout out Juneteenth coming up on June 19th to celebrate the emancipation of Black people in the United States. And that's a whole Chiron conversation. We'll talk about that on my off time with some whiskey. So anyway, but I want to ask all of you, what does your organization have planned for Pride this year? And how do you plan on keeping that party going? Because we have to keep Pride going beyond June. Pride is all day, every day, all year, many years, until the end of time, whenever that is. I guess I get to decide that, which will be never. So tell me, I would like to start with you, Elliot. I know you just spoke a lot, but you were the last to answer, so I'm going to give you the first slot here.
All right. Well, the Rogue Action, I work with the Rogue Action Center LGBTQ plus listening project. And a couple of things we have going on. We're doing next week. We're doing an LGBTQ plus history in Southern Oregon conversation, which I hope is the first of many. But really asking, like, okay, if we need to know where we're coming from to know where we're going. That's kind of the tagline in my mind. So how do we, not forget what's come before, but build on that? And I'm super excited about the folks who are going to be speaking as part of that. There's a Grants Pass and Illinois Valley Pride events. We'll be tabling at a screening of Out Dance Project happening in the field behind my house. And there was a Pride panel earlier this month. And tomorrow this is a monthly thing, but we hold a QT BIPOC liberation space every month for queer and trans folks of color in Southern Oregon to connect. So that's happening too, and I think that folks are going to be talking about Pride, what it means, and yeah, so.
Deborah, you're next.
Well, we actually have quite a few things going on. We've planned from the beginning to do a hybrid approach so that we wouldn't have to cancel, move, change much based on what COVID might or might not be doing. We will be broadcasting a virtual Portland Pride Parade on Sunday the 20th, which would have been when we would have held the Pride Parade this year. We recorded it at the big International Raceway last week, and that was an adventure. We have a multitude of things. The parade is a big one. It'll never replace, there's nothing that replaces the in-person energy when our community gets together. And so we don't have a goal of replacing that. This is something that we can offer to bring people together. We have a 2-day film festival. That's the in-person event that we're doing. It's an outdoor film festival starting tomorrow, actually, in partnership with the directors of the Portland Queer Documentary Festival. And we're all kind of hoping that this is the beginning of something bigger, because we'd love to do this again, no matter what else Pride looks like in the future. And then we have a mix of virtual offerings. We tend to partner each year with other organizations to elevate the work that they're doing and to just kind of bring that Pride theme together. We have Resonance Ensemble is premiering as a world premiere piece involving Lady Dane and I've forgotten the composer's name. That's the only offering we have on Juneteenth because it's specific to trans women of color, particularly Black trans women. The Portland Gay Men's Chorus is doing their annual concert again virtually this year. It's a full calendar, and I can never actually remember it all, unfortunately. And then going through the year, Pride Northwest is active all year. Going back to your point about Pride is always for us more than just one weekend or 1 week and 1 month, because it was never intended to be those things. The Pride celebration, the Pride March, the Pride, whatever you want to call it, was supposed to be the beginning point, not the end point. And that's where a lot of our priorities are moving to. What's what's the importance of pride and what's the impact that we can have for our community. And so those are really the conversations we're moving forward with.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Deborah. Nick, tell us what's going on in the Gorge.
Hey. So in the Gorge, we're keeping it pretty low key this year. Last year we had to cancel completely, as most folks obviously did. I think this year we really wanted to kind of slow ourselves into it, at recognizing that our community has been really hard hit this last year, and not wanting people to feel like they have to engage with Pride in any particular way, more than that they're able to. And so we're just having kind of an informal picnic at the Hood River waterfront. Whoever wants to come on down. And we're just, hoping for just a small, intimate gathering, and just getting together the way we can. We're working on trying to get a vaccine provider to come and table at the picnic, so that anybody who needs a vaccine is able to take advantage of that service right there. Because who doesn't want increased vaccine access? And honestly, much like Deborah was talking about, my hope is that this year that first grant that the Columbia Gorge Pride Alliance got was only the beginning. I really, it's just like my big dreams is to see something happening in the Gorge every single month, and for our youth to really be driving that, and for us to be just clearing the path for them, and not feeding them our ideas of what Pride needs to look like, but rather allowing them to birth what Pride could look like. Especially for this area where you drive around and you maybe see one or two rainbow flags downtown, if you're lucky on a good day. But things are really, it really feels like things are starting to take a slight turn. Like just up the street from me, I live in the middle of the Dalles, and there is a house covered in Pride flags from head to toe. Just any sign you could imagine. We love our queer neighbors, and not a single thing has happened to that house. And it just makes me so joyful to see every single time I drive by. So honestly, my hope for Pride this year is that house is the beginning, and that you are going to be able to drive down any street in the Dalles or Hood River and just be like, this place is gay as hell, and I want to be here. I love it.
Yes, that sounds so awesome. Okay, I can't wait to come to the Gorge and all of these lovely places. Oregon is a very big state, by the way. I got to remind myself that it'll take 8 hours to get one way, 10 hours to get another way. So I'll see you over the remainder of a month. How does that sound? And we'll just keep Pride going. Robin, tell us what's happening in Prineville.
Yes, all the things are happening in Prineville. So I'm here joining as a representative of Prideville, created in 2018 when I was working at County Mental Health, to help address some of the isolation that I was seeing with the young folks that I was working, either within the LGBTQ plus community, BIPOC community, et cetera. And we've kind of just been slowly taking baby steps, crawling forward and doing events. Last year, amidst our big pandemic COVID year, we did our first Pride March, socially distanced, and we hope to have maybe a dozen folks that we could go get a beer afterwards and hang out with our dogs. And we had 43 and 3 dogs. That felt like a huge turnout for such a small town in the middle of a pandemic. And it felt amazing. Throughout the year, we've been working, Oregon Health Authority, we received a grant to work towards LGBTQ plus suicide prevention and carrying some of those projects on throughout the year. And that's how I ran across Elliot and Sophie and became aware of and got to help promote and bring Out Dance to Prineville. And Elliot, I'm bringing you up because you were our first kind of donor from Out Dance for our little seed fund for our Pride celebration this year. So really, community taking care of community, even though we are 8 to 10 hours away, That helped get the ball rolling on what we're doing this year. And this year we promised folks at our March last year that we're going to do something bigger, and it has grown. So, gosh, a little bit of everything from queer movie nights at our local brewery. We're going to be doing an out dance showing coming up here on the 25th and hosting that. We're going to have queer Bible stories that include stories of our LGBTQ plus and BIPOC folks from the Bible at one of our local Lutheran churches. We are going to have an event with the Chamber of Commerce to recognize our locally owned BIPOC and queer businesses and kind of showcase them, help them stand out and shine during this time where local businesses are struggling anyway. We have a whole lot of art events, paint nights. We're conjoining our PFLAG meeting with one of our paint nights by a local artist to help promote art as healing, but then also PFLAG is one of our long-standing biggest supporters here in Prineville that existed long before Prideville ever did. And that's all going to kind of culminate and end on the 27th with our big Pride celebration. We've received a whole lot of sponsorship, grants, funding from places like PFLAG out Central Oregon. Our Facebook data center has been a huge support. Trick is with what we are doing here in rural communities is we've got the cash. It's hard to get folks to come together to celebrate. We're 30 miles down the road from Bend, which is kind of our bigger sister city. And Elliot had said something really that feels powerful and important is we want to have our queer BIPOC communities, our elders, our supportive adults kind of standing up, standing out, so those younger people can come together and really feel safe to celebrate. Without that support and having people show up for our youth in our community, some of these events tend to fall flat. And so I'm not an event planner by trade, but the fact that people are willing to send checks feels huge. What we really need help is having just some of those smiling faces and dancing bodies show up in the space to provide that comfort and security.
That's awesome. Yo, it's popping in Prideville. Shout out to y'all. That sounds really awesome. Yo, okay, y'all gonna have me double booked with all these events now, but I'll still be there. I don't care. I'll be there.
Hey, Kyron, I forgot one thing, which I feel just like, I can't not say it, but Kieran from Basic Rights Oregon is gonna lead like trans and queer know your rights workshop at the end
Nice.
on June 30th and focused on like trans and queer rights in healthcare, educational settings and public space, because, you know, there's all of these kinds of, we just hear, you know, I hear all the time, like shitty things happening to people. And we realize that part of it is like, oh, we're not, it's like we're so far, there's a lot of legal protections, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's happening on the ground. And, you know, often there's that gap. It's like, you know, yeah, people don't even know the rights that we have in public school spaces. You know, yeah, you have a right to be free of harassment, but like, you know, so that doesn't happen. And then what? So anyway, I wanted to put that out there. It's for particularly folks in Southern Oregon, but it is on Zoom. If you want to come, check it out. It's in partnership with some other local groups, and it's on the Rogue Action Center page and Southern Oregon Coalition for Racial Equity.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Elliot. And shout out to Karen, because Karen was my host for my queer town hall I don't remember exactly when it was. It was recent though. And Karen is the absolute best. Much love to you. And Beck, take the best for last for all those lovely kitties. Now, tell me what's going on.
So in Lincoln County, I am here mostly representing my program, which is the Bravery Center for LGBTQIA2S+ youth. But I am also the acting chair of our local PFLAG chapter, so kind of like wearing two hats today. And Bravery is a youth and young adult focused program, and so it's really important to me that they are the people leading and driving this work. So I have a really fabulous, although very tiny, but super, super fabulous youth leadership team, and they really wanted to see our local government step up and do something in support of the community, which would be a really, really huge step here. So they got together and wrote a formal request to our county commissioners to adopt a resolution and make June Pride Month. And they wrote this really beautiful, incredibly well-written and researched letter. And They sent it to me for edits. I didn't touch it. I just sent it along to our commissioners. And yesterday it was voted in. So we officially have June as Pride Month, which is a historic first here in Lincoln County. It's super, super awesome. And what was totally amazing is that one of my youth leaders is just so super brave and so articulate and wonderful, and was like, this is great. Designating Pride Month is wonderful, but we're going to need you to actually follow through and make it mean something. And that was just really, really tremendous. These kids are incredibly inspiring, and they really do inform and drive the work and keep me accountable and make sure that what we're doing is what is needed for them and not just a bunch of adults telling them what we think they need. So that's tremendously exciting. Lincoln County also does have a Pride committee. We canceled last year, are not putting anything together for this year, but I know they'll be coming back together to make something happen for the following year. PFLAG has our annual picnic in August. This year it is going to be taking place out in Siletz at a lovely park, and it's just a socially distanced, very casual. There will be live music, I think, hopefully, fingers crossed. Place to come out, hang out safely, and eat food and find community. And then I'm hoping in September that the Bravery program will actually be able to have a grand opening. And for me, that is a form of pride celebration in and of itself. And I will be opening the drop-in center for youth. And that will be tremendously, tremendously exciting. So kind of like people have been saying, I kind of think it's going to be like a way to celebrate Pride all year long, which is how it should be anyways, just to have like a constant scattering of stuff happening all of the time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beck. And shout out to our youth. Please give all the youth some claps here, because they're about to save the world. I'm going to call it. Maybe us older millennials, we're starting to mess this up, just like the parts of the boomers that have messed this up. So please continue to uplift your youth and keep that generational connection together, because we got a lot of this world to save on so many levels. So to take over right now, I just want to first shout out Deb Parker. You won the bro tote in the raffle or the pool. I'm not sure what happened on the background while all this was going on, but you won yourself a bro tote, and you better carry that all around, show your fashion, get you some colors to match it, or don't. It doesn't matter. You wear what you want, because it is Pride and you can do whatever you want. Okay then. And then one last thing, and this is our final question for this entire event. I hope everyone is having a lovely time hanging out. So for all of you, how are you individually celebrating Pride? Because, you've talked about your organizations, but we're all individuals. We all have different ways in which we celebrate Pride. I know I'm being the most extrovert out here, but my Pride is sometimes cuddling with my Cookie Monster and reading a book. So what's your Pride? Nick, starting with you.
Gotta cuddle the Cookie Monster. Man, me, I don't know, man. I am celebrating Pride by just being my loud, queer, trans self. This last year has really, I don't know, it felt like our queer community was really taking these big strides forward in coming together more often and really getting closer. And then the pandemic happened and things just kind of were put on a really strong halt. And I miss my people. I miss hanging out and being in a big cuddle puddle and just talking about the craziness that cisgender straight people are doing in the world, and just sitting around and talking smack. I love my people for that. You know that, Kai. You my bro. And I think I'm gonna be celebrating Pride by just being with my people, being with my community, snuggling with all of you, and like putting every like rainbow and trans flag that a person can own like in every one of my windows, so that everybody is aware of who lives on this big rock on a corner and it just has to deal with it. And so I'm not entirely sure what that's going to look like, but it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be queer. And it ain't going to stop on June 30th. I'll tell you that right now.
I know that's right. I can't wait to cuddle puddle with you too, bro. It's going to be great. Make sure you bring the fur babies, because you know Uncle Kai loves the fur babies. Uncle Kai loves the fur babies, y'all. So I'm your ultimate uncle to your fur baby, just so you know. Let's see, Beck, you're next. How are you celebrating Pride with all those kittens?
Yeah, mostly hanging out with the cats. I am probably like your polar opposite. I am painfully introverted. I am like ultra terrified of parades and things like that, and large gatherings and going to like clubs and whatever. So my Pride is very quiet, and really, I guess, kind of an everyday thing. It's something that I try to be mindful of. And in my work, just being very mindful of how deeply important it is for other people to celebrate in ways that are different than what is comfortable or needed for me. Because it is, I mean, I have so many extroverted members of my community here locally who do want to cuddle puddle and party and hang out and find community. And those needs may be totally different than mine, and they are completely valid. And I want to help facilitate that connection for them. So that is the space that I'm in, is helping make that happen for other people. Focusing on the youth. So I guess my celebrating Pride is really channeling all of that into work for other people, and then also allowing myself to get really productively pissed off. That is definitely something that I'm doing this month.
Awesome. Thank you, Beck. And don't forget, even just sitting in pride and silence and in mindfulness, just like in reflection, that is also a very awesome way to celebrate Pride. Honestly, that's one of the ways I've celebrated Pride in years. And it has really just made me more thankful and grateful for the community that has uplifted me. But also, that productively pissed off, I feel that energy, just so you know. So please bring that energy as well as the calming energy at the same time. Robin, how are you feeling about Pride?
I go back and forth between being ridiculously excited and somewhat anxious, nauseous of trying to be productively pissed off. I'm going to steal that term and use it on a regular now, as well as, being a mental health therapist here in Prineville, holding space for people's stories, taking in and giving them the room that they need to heal, to grow, to be okay with everything that's going on in the world. I feel like part of my job as cisgender, bisexual, white woman is to try to force space open so they get to do that. So they get to have their parties, their safe places, their celebrations, their friendship. And my Capricorn self is not a party planner at heart. And so I get really anxious trying to do some of these things when people hand you a big check or want to come party with you. So I think that my job and part of how I'm celebrating Pride this year and going forward is to continue to apply that critical thinking, looking at systems, looking at policies, looking at procedures, and throwing myself out there when it comes to maybe helping have some voice for folks that aren't able.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Robin. I love it. I love all of that. And shout out to that Cap energy. Capricorns are my favorite. Shout out to Margot at Basic Rights Oregon. She is my homie. She is my person. Shout out to Pittsburgh once again, both us and Elliot in that process. And Elliot, I'm coming to you, my fellow 412. Tell me how you're celebrating Pride.
Well, to be honest, I've been doing a fair amount of crying. And I feel like that is just right too. Like, I kept saying to my partner, like, how do I make space for joy? How do I make space for joy? And then she kind of said, like, maybe it's, instead of it being some particular pathway, it's like, you just do it. Like, okay, now in the meeting is the time for us to yell. Now is the time for us to dance, whatever. Like, there's some just like embodied blocking up kind of stuff that's been part of the past year. So I went to some hot springs last weekend. I've been watching Pose. I got Sarah Schulman's book about the political history of ACT UP from my local library, which I feel psyched about. I'm excited about these in-person Pride events. I'm also like nervous about being in person with people. I feel painfully awkward. And I guess I'm just want to like embrace that awkward, like just like really enjoy it and try to have like a sense of humor about it. And I think the other thing, like celebrating Pride, is just like trying out the story this month of like, I'm gorgeous. My life is amazing. I'm so proud of what I've overcome and like what my communities have overcome. And it's like worthwhile to take exquisite care of myself and my family, and all my dreams are possible. And because that's not my story all the time, you know, and I'm also imperfect and growing and everything is super messed up. But yeah, but like taking time to like invest in that story of yeah, that just like because that's how I want other people to feel too, you know. You're all amazing. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Elliot. I really do appreciate it. And you know what? Crying is great. I honestly probably need to cry. It's been a while because I just have been productively pissed at this world. So I got to find my balance. You know, Margot recently left me and I still haven't quite cried yet, but you know, we'll get there. And over time, Margot was my roommate, y'all. You know, I have feelings, I have separation anxiety, but we're not talking about me. We're going to talk to Deb, bringing it in, telling us how they're celebrating Pride.
Well, that's another good question. Really, Pride celebration for me is comes well. There's two pieces. It's the excitement of being able to create an environment where community can come together in whatever way they want to come together is still sort of the thrill for me after all this time, being able to be part of creating that space. And seeing the impact of that space because someone, no matter how far we advance, someone coming out is scary, and Pride happens to be a place where a lot of people come out for the first time, or come out in public, etc. And that's an emotional roller coaster every single time. And that's probably what I miss most about the in-person piece, actually, because we don't have that opportunity to do that together. On a personal note, my Pride celebrating comes with living my life with my wife of almost 8 years now, and basically being out and who we are in our neighborhood with our friends, etc. Neither one, we're very much homebodies. We don't do the big party. We don't, every once in a while, and then I have to go home and rest for a couple of weeks. But really, it's celebrating Pride to me is the everyday living who I am, no matter where I'm at. That took a long time to get to, so it doesn't matter what room I'm in or what meeting I'm in or what environment I'm in. Getting to a place where I'm me in those places all the time, and that for me is Pride.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us today with the Basic Rights Oregon Queer Town Hall. We're bringing it to a close now because I'm realizing we're a minute over and I probably got to get on a Zoom and yell at somebody at my own job. So no, I don't have to do that. That was just a joke. But really, thank you all for joining us today. I hope you had a blast with me. I hope you had a blast with everybody else on this wonderful call. And, please continue to reach out to Basic Rights Oregon, reach out to all of these respective Pride organizations all throughout your state to learn about what's going on for Pride. Not just this week, not just this month, but all mother effing year. Snap it up, y'all. Give yourself some claps. Do some twerking in your chair. Get up, shake it out, all that stuff. But don't twerk too hard if your check me light is on. That's my advice for today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you, bro, for having me. And, I'm going to go have some fun and do some prideful things myself, twerk in the park or something. All right. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thanks.